Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Security Break podcast. I'm Giorgio, and this is a little project of mine where I invite cool people to talk about some of the latest news about the cybersecurity world. And the idea is that, speaking with so many people in the industry, I can learn something every new episode, and hopefully you can learn something as well while watching this. This is currently live on YouTube, so consider maybe subscribing to the channel if you want to follow the this and the next episodes that are out every week or so. And for today, I'm so happy to welcome Sarah, or is it Sarah? How do you pronounce
It's
it?
Sarah.
Sarah, of course. Sorry, I'm Italian. Usually it's Sarah here, but I'll
I'm
try
Italian
my best.
also, so
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
well, at
Oh, very
least
cool.
part Italian.
That's great. We accept that. That's already let's say 10 points. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. And so, for it, would you like to introduce yourself for the public here?
Absolutely. So my name is Sarah Anderson. I'm based in Louisiana in the United States, and I am a cybersecurity attorney as well as a speaker, professional educator, and I practice law primarily, but I really love just kind of joining the ranks of other thought leaders in this space and being able to communicate, I would say, to non-technologists about the cybersecurity world so that it becomes less of a, I would say, language barrier between technologists and non-technologists. I'm also an officer in the United States Army Reserve, but my position there is completely unrelated to cyber, and nothing I say here reflects on the United States Army. I have to give that as a disclaimer. And I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on, Giorgio. I'm also a parent and a spouse, so full family life.
That's very cool. I like so much that that kind of mission you mentioned out there, that you want to kind of break that language barrier with the non-technical people. I think I like to think that it's also one of the goals of this project right here, and that's also the reason why I'm so happy to have someone like you with your background and your skill set, which is totally different than mine, right? I had I'm a technical person. I had other technical people in previous episodes, but I really like to have and to share thoughts and opinions with as many people as possible, with as different backgrounds as possible, so that I can definitely learn from another pillar of the industry, right? Because there's so much more than just the technical part.
Yeah, and I
So
mean, you
thank you.
can't avoid it. Yeah, I mean, you can't avoid technology. I mean, it's not like anyone's going back to a cave anytime soon. I mean, everybody, if you send an email or you have a job, you're in the world, whether you want to admit the technology world, whether you want to admit it or not. So you might as well, know something about your surroundings. And it's interesting to me how many people kind of want to like dig their head in and just be like, no, I don't have anything to do with it. I'm like, you have something to do with it. You spend money and you have, a job and you're on social media. You have a lot to do with it. So like I said, I think people are really afraid of it. But in reality, I mean, I would say, if anything, now is the time to become unafraid, because it's here. Everybody's using it. There's absolutely no avoiding it, none whatsoever. I feel like COVID really sped up the process too.
Absolutely. And that's so funny that you say that, because I feel like it's the same, like the opposite. Like the very technical people in the industry, they are so, they want to avoid thinking or talking about anything regarding laws and regulations for this, for these entire subjects. Like, no, there's completely different. We don't have anything to do with that. And actually, that's so false, right? So yeah,
Yeah, well, they
it's
also
very
get
fun.
stuck with it. They get stuck with it too, and I feel for a lot of technologists, in their spaces if they don't have, a lawyer or somebody else to kind of bridge the gap between like law and policy and what they're doing, because then they'll just be handed, oh, we need to be X compliant. And they're just like, okay, well, I don't know what this is. And this isn't my job to interpret it. I just man, the systems and oversee the technology administration. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with this. And then there's just a complete breakdown in communication in between them. And so you've got someone whose job has nothing to do with law and policy and is strictly, technology based, and best practices, yes, are included, being asked to conform to different laws and regulations that it's not their job to interpret anyways. So that to me is like the biggest disconnect, is finding someone who speaks both languages, because, for the technologists, it's hard. They are trying to talk to, whoever is in charge of making sure they conform with X, Y, or Z in whatever country or state that they're in. And that person doesn't know anything about the technology equipment that is being used, or how the network is set up, or what is the purpose of certain applications. And so it would be like if you were speaking Italian and I'm speaking English, we're not going to get anywhere, because I know absolutely zero Italian, despite having.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. So I think we're good to start with the news we collected. I'm gonna share my screen here.
Please.
Where is it? This is the screen. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So
I love Chris Pratt.
Oh, I do as well. I hope to.
Yeah. He's fantastic.
I hope to. I hope to get him on the podcast as well at some point, if he ever replies to my messages. That's it.
I've sent him some too. It's not happening. I think he gets like 1 billion of them.
Yeah, that's probably right. So that's, the idea is this one. We collected 3 news for tonight, and I just collected the ones that I thought could be interesting for us to talk about. The first one, it's of course this piece from Brian Krebs, and it's talking about a recent sextortion campaign that multiple people have just messaged him about. And this is, sextortion is nothing new. It's basically another form of phishing, if we want, but at the same time there's something slightly different on this specific campaign right here. So first of all, let me get back a second. So sextortion, if that's not really clear for everyone here, we're talking about something that some sort of scam or fraud where the element of sex is being used in order to leverage and drive the victim in order to maybe pay a ransom or something like that, or just fall for the scam. And in this specific piece, the different thing was that in addition to the allegedly all the content that has been collected from the victim, they say there's even screenshot from the email here that says something. Oh, I've shared and I've recorded you for a certain amount of time, even when you watched porn or something. And now if you don't want me to share this with your friends and family, you have to pay me this amount. The added, let's say, thing here was that at the very end of the email, the fraudster basically included an image from Google Maps or something like that, from the actual address of the victim, saying, oh, if you don't actually pay, I will maybe come to your house or do something even worse. That's interesting. I from a technical point of view, I know already how that's, let's say, possible, even though maybe not everything that is written on the email is very true. But I want to hear your first thoughts first. Like what you thought about when you first read this.
Well, like you said, sextortion's been around for a really long time, and it has morphed, I would say, over the years a little bit. It used to be, something that would happen, I would say, when people would search porn and could prove that they were buying porn, or they were, kind of on the Ashley Madison list from 2015, which was a very big deal, right? So it was more legitimate activities that were being extorted, whereas now the activities do not need to be legitimate. with the advent of artificial intelligence, the ability to create deep fakes. I mean, it would be very easy for someone right now to take our headshots, right, and produce a supposed nude image of either of us, and say that we were posting it online. And the thing with this that makes it even scarier is they've got, with people posting photos, and this is, I do the same thing. I post photos that occur in the inside of my home, right? I've got pictures of me and my kids, in front of the Christmas tree. I have pictures, of like construction going on in my house or backyard or something like that. You can take the images of a person's home and you can superimpose whatever, deep fake plus their head and their neck, right? If you have a gauge of their body type, and then superimpose that picture on the background of their home, which makes it look incredibly legitimate. And it's not like the old Loch Ness photo, Photoshops that were complete hoaxes and kind of obvious to tell, where you've got, the fake Loch Ness monster, sitting in the water, and there's no ripples around the Loch Ness monster, but then there's ripples all around. And you're just like, okay, that's the exact opposite of the way it should be, right? There would be ripples for wherever the water's disturbed. So it's not as obvious anymore. And unfortunately it's seamless and it's very easy to do. That's the other thing. People forget that cybercrime is a, high volume, low quality business, right? They're not in the business of making all their money off of one person. They're in the business of casting a net, make it as wide as you can, and grab everything you can. So it's kind of, if you ever see this, maybe this, I don't know if you guys have the show, and I'm sure you do. But what is it called? Deadliest Catch.
Oh, right.
With the crabs, the crab fishermen in Alaska. That's when I tell people cybercrime is like, you cast a net and you try to get everything you can. And sometimes you get stuff you don't want, right? Like sharks and dolphins, or I don't think there's dolphins up there, but whatever there is, right? But the idea is to get as many crabs in your net as possible. And that is what they're doing. So it's just so easy. It's so easy. And then, we put so much information, myself included, voluntarily online, right? So, and I'll give you an example. If what makes this even scarier to me is not the street address. Anyone can find a street address. Like, for example, my husband has this application on his phone because he's a hunter, and he wants to make sure he doesn't accidentally wander into someone else's property, because
right.
Down here, I know guns are taboo in Italy and hunting is not as big of a thing, right? But, down here, if he's going out and shooting deer in the middle of the woods in Louisiana or Mississippi, he wants to make sure he's not going to walk on someone else's property or property line. So he has this app that shows him exactly where he is and who owns the property.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's all open source data, because at least in the States, your address is public record. Because whether you own the property or not, your lease could be filed in the public records and anyone can access it, right? For a small fee, but anyone can access it. Your utility bills are in the public record. If you get picked up for a speeding ticket, that's in the public record, right? So anyone can pull your address. Anyone can see where you live on Google Maps. This is so easy to do. I mean, I feel like I could do it. And I'm not what I consider a criminal, or B, a cyber criminal. But I mean, this is just super easy to do. And I think people forget how much information is out there, on the internet right now. And so this, on Krebs' site, this is clearly, in my opinion, fake. Someone took a picture of the driveway, try to make it look like they were in front of there. But it would also be very easy for someone, if they wanted to threaten me, what would get, sort of get my goat, so to speak, is if they were threatening to send stuff to my kid's school, right? Or something like that. And they had a picture of kids walking into the school, which are posted all over the website, about the environment and stuff. So it's just too easy. And then to make it even worse, what I think he could have added to this article is using people's positions, like jobs, and kind of doubling down on that. So like, if you have, a LinkedIn page and a Facebook page, or a LinkedIn page and an Instagram page, you can figure out all you want about this other person, in their home life on the Instagram page, and then go to the LinkedIn page and be like, oh, this person maintains a website. This person is the CFO of this company. This person is in sales and marketing, and threaten them and be like, I will send this out to your distribution list, through your email that you maintain, or I'll post this picture on your website, or I'll let everyone in the company know that, this is a picture of you, watching pornography. And so there's so many different ways to make it scary. And the more you amp up the fear factor, the better knee-jerk reaction you're going to get from that person. And there's just almost no way to know if it's legitimate or not unless you've either, never taken a nude photo in your life, or, that you are at least aware of, or you've, never had a device before. So, so there's, I mean, it's very difficult, for, I would say, the majority of people to say this is really not true, this is a hoax, but you have to look at the flip side of that too, right? So when people do get these, if they're pretty certain it's a hoax, right, it's easier to ignore because they know enough about their own activities and their actions to be like, this didn't happen, I know it's not me, right? But at the same time, like, you're going to be embarrassed either way.
That's the thing, right? The embarrassment is another leverage they use in order to push you to do what I'm asking you to, right? Embarrassment, or of course, the leverage with your family and friends to know something. Maybe you don't really know what you actually did. Like in this case, they're not specifying anything. They're just saying, "Oh, I've recorded you." Oh, I don't know what I did in the last.
Did I leave my computer up?
Weeks,
yeah.
Right. So that's the thing, and I like what you said about the fact that cybercrime is something that is going to target tens, hundreds, or even thousands of people at the same time, because the real thing here is to make money. Here I think they're asking something like $2,000, but that it's not about that specific amount. I'm I'm even sure they are going to negotiate and maybe even accept less than that. The thing is that they're asking the same thing to 100 other people out there, and I'm starting to assume and guess right here. But what I'm going to say about this is that possibly this is a bunch of um, names and surnames and addresses taken from some data breaches that there were in the past, right? They just collected this very huge database, and they just sent this email to everyone, and just I have your address, I'll just search it on Google Maps. I can actually automate that, right? I can put a bunch of addresses in there and just take the screenshot from Google Maps, taking your photos, and that's it. I don't really know anything about you. I don't really maybe have any data about you, but still, just the fact that I scare you with what I could potentially have about you, that's as you said, for most of the people enough, because you can say it for sure. It's not true. And once again, every time we speak about something like this, the only answer is you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of this kind of campaign. Oh, there was something similar happening in the past. So just because this is happening to me doesn't mean that it's actually true, right? I don't know. I don't think there are, unfortunately, other answers, but that's it. And that's, once again, the reason why I want to do this kind of shows.
Yeah. And this particular issue, first of all, people also have to remember that data mining is not illegal, right? Like, it's a legitimate service. You can literally pull up almost any website that has like their people on it, and they will have email addresses available on that website based on mailing lists, or meet our staff, or meet our professionals, or something. Right. And you can easily source that code. You can Google how to do it in Chrome and it'll tell you, and then you just do it. It's very, very simple. The instructions on these types of things are very basic. So you can get all those email addresses. And then once you have, I'll give you, law firms, I think, are probably the worst about this, but they make it super easy because they have the email address of the person on there. They have their full legal name, right? Because they're almost always, attorneys don't often go by just nicknames online. They'll put their full, like I go by Sarah W. Anderson. It's almost my full name. So we're easy to find, right? People don't usually go by like Trey or Trip or, Kaz or whatever it is. And then they say where they are. So like Tampa, Florida, right? So you've got such and such, Smith the third in Tampa, Florida. And, so immediately their name, the city that they're in, and they're just easily findable, and they're in a position of respect, if they're a partner at a law firm or something. So they automatically are more concerned about image because they have to be, or they wouldn't be in a position of respect, right? You make it so easy, and then all you got to do is like have access to utility records or whatever data. But I mean, you don't even really need much data to be leaked. A lot of it. Remember when how easy Spokio used to be to use? Do you remember that website? And they got in
Right.
trouble for it. But like a lot of that data is still out there because nothing ever leaves the internet, right? Or you'll find their Facebook page or their Instagram page, and it'll be very easy to determine where they live. And next thing you know, or where their kids go to school. Celebrities do this. When they post a picture of their children for school, they'll say, if their kids usually go to private school, they'll blur out the crest,
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. And you can pick up where they go to school immediately if you're being creepy about it. And next thing you know, you can say, I'm going to send this to your child's school and tell everyone, that their parent is selling feet pictures on OnlyFans or something, and superimpose your face on someone who is selling feet pictures on OnlyFans, and it just humiliates you. And so it's just, the higher the fear factor, the more specific they can make it, and the wider the net, the more likely they are to be successful, and the more likely someone is to have a knee-jerk reaction, whether they've done anything or not. And I'm not even saying done anything. There's nothing wrong with, your private practices inside your home, right? That's none of anybody's business. But the other thing I want to point out is that they say, pay us $2,000 or whatever it is. Yes, you can negotiate it, but even if you negotiate it down, you're negotiating with a criminal.
Absolutely.
Right? So what does it matter? Like, you pay them $2,000, they could do it anyways. They have no loyalty to you. They have no loyalty to that purchase price. Who are you going to report it to? They're already criminals. I'm going to call the police if I paid you your fee, and I'm going to call the police. It's like, ma'am, I'm a criminal. I don't care if you call the police. This whole thing is criminal. Like, there's no value in paying it. It's funny. I've had people come to me with these types of events, and it was someone who was apparently, they said, the attackers wrote them an email saying, we have pictures of you pleasuring yourself by looking at pornography on the website, and we have it through your iPad. And like, I have very little doubt that someone was looking at pornography on this iPad. But what I told this person, it was like, number one, I was like, even if they do, you can pretend it's a deep fake and lie about it. And because like deep fakes are so good now, it's not like it's not like they're going to put my face on Marilyn Monroe's body and like consider that a deep fake. Like, no, they're pretty good, right? Unless you have some sort of like abnormal birthmark or something, or your anatomy is fairly basic, right? You don't have like bizarre piercings and tattoos. Anyone can fake you at any time. It is not hard. So you can just say it's, fake if you do get it. But, and then also it's happening to just about everybody. So, it used to be very taboo, right, to be on dating sites back in the early 2000s or the late 90s, yet everyone started getting on these dating sites. I think this is going to be the same thing. Or eventually this will move into a category that's worthless, where they're like, look, it's so easy to fake. The information is out there. They're doing it to as many people as humanly possible, and whether or not it's me or not is impossible to tell, because you'll never know.
That's true. Like, I feel like probably with the new generations, they will have to change the approach or the strategy, because this is going to be less and less something that people are afraid of, right? Hopefully,
I mean, I would just be horrified by it.
Aspect.
Yeah, I would be horrified by it, just because I wouldn't want anyone thinking one thing or another, and like I'd be terrified. But I also know if I'm not going to pay, because then I'm paying a criminal. There's no loyalty there. They don't care about me. But the thing that's really scary is that this is happening through social media. And in fact, a lot of states are trying to pass, like in the United States, pass social media laws that prohibit or require certain controls on the accounts of minors, like people under the age of 18 here, or 16 in some states. Because what's happening now is and it's really sad, but some of the most effective sextortion schemes are committed against kids, like young people like under 20, under 18, because they meet someone on TikTok that they think is of the opposite sex, or maybe they are of the opposite sex. And, someone convinces them to send them a nude, and then they extort them, and kids are killing themselves over it. So that's really where it gets frightening.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many different, versions of this kind of scams. Once again, the only weapon we have to defend ourselves is really awareness. So, once again, just I'm going to paste all the articles in the description of the video. So go on and have a read of the piece, and make your own opinion, make your own research. That's something that I always do. So I think we should probably jump to the next news here,
Please.
which is similar but also very interesting as well. Once again, this is not new. We're talking about some data relating to healthcare and therapy sessions being not exfiltrated, I would say exposed, because there was let's say a cloud database that was publicly available for some time, and a security researcher found out about it, and basically reached out to the company and said, oh, you maybe should change something here. But before doing it, they reviewed a part of the data that was available, and there was really anything in there, right? Possibly the worst kind of data you would like to be shared with the public. We spoke about potentially some recording of yourself at your home, but this is potentially even worse with if you have any kind of health issues, anything you shared with your doctor, and they are saying either documents but also video and audio recordings of the sessions at the clinic. So that's really, I can't think about anything that could be worse to be shared in terms of the impact that could have on your life as a person, right? That there's probably anything that is really the worst. Now, this is something slightly different. This time, there really was some data in there. We have the clue, and it's not yet a scam in the sense that hopefully this was blocked and identified even before someone could have stolen the data. But still, that's the other side of it, right? Companies that actually have that kind of data, that need that kind of data to be stored for a long time maybe, and at the same time still we don't see that level of attention that there should be in order to secure that kind of data, right? And the company this time, they say they blocked the access just in terms of maybe 1 hour after they knew about it, that they care about the data and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I still think this is very huge in terms of type of data being shared. There was some personal identifiable information as well, and the amount of data we are talking about, 1.7 million activity logs I'm reading here,
Yeah,
120,000 files.
yeah,
That's
5.3 terabytes is an incredible amount of data.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if something like this would have happened in Europe, I know already that the privacy authority would have
Oh, yeah. It's
applied
very aggressive.
fines. Absolutely. So I don't know. What do you think? Will they even happen anything to this company in the US because of this, or maybe not? What do you think
Oh,
about it?
there's definitely going to be serious backlash if it gets out. So you got a couple of problems with dealing with something like this in the United States. Okay, the first thing is there's been so many data breaches over the years that, and this is something I tell my clients, that yes, you can be sued, for injuries that people sustain as a result of a data breach, but their ability to prove that it was your data breach and not one of the other 65 that happened this year, right, that caused the issue is difficult. But with
Okay.
something like this, it's not as difficult, right? Because it's so specific. And in the United States, we have like what's called the Health Information Privacy and Portability, Health Information Privacy and Accountability Act, or Portability and Accountability Act. That acronym has always just challenged me, but it does not
It's
allow people.
HIPAA, right? Is it
Yes,
HIPAA? Okay.
HIPAA. Yes, it's
Okay.
Portability and Accountability Act, but that act does not allow someone like me to sue our doctor for failing to adhere to the privacy standards. We're not allowed to sue. Only the
Okay.
government can enforce HIPAA. But United States courts, with all of the cyber stuff that's been going around, like it used to be, if you tried to sue your doctor for a HIPAA violation, you would get laughed out of court. They'd be like, you can't do that. Get out of here. Get out. No. But now, with everything being moved to electronic health records and everything being stored digitally, as opposed to paper files, right? Because paper files eventually get, dictated and scanned, and then they eventually throw the paper out after a few years. With everything being kept digitally, failure by healthcare providers to secure the data that they keep digitally, again, not something you can sue on directly, but their failure to adhere to those HIPAA standards that only the government can enforce can allow you to sue under what we just call negligence. So if I do something negligent, like say, Georgia, I invite you into my home, and right before you come into my house, I mop and wax my floors and they're super slippery, and I don't warn you about it, and you just walk in and you're like, oh, hey, Sarah, and you slip and fall and you break your hip, right? That's my negligence that caused you to fall. I knew the floors were slippery. I invited you in, right? And I didn't tell you, hey, watch your step, man. That's negligence. Well, they're applying that same concept to healthcare providers that aren't taking electronic health records seriously and saying, you are a provider, you kept these records, you had a duty to them to do your best to keep them safe, and you had a regulatory duty to do it, not just a regular duty as a healthcare provider that people confide in, right? You failed to adhere to that duty, and as a result, they've been embarrassed or suffering mental anguish. The stuff is on the internet. You're ruining families because people tell their therapists things that they would never tell their spouse, right? Or that they would never want their family to know. And also in the United States, we have certain categories of health information that are like ultra protected. So all protected health information is supposed to be safe and private and secure. And then there's elevated areas of that. And that is addiction and substance abuse issues, sexually transmitted diseases, right? And mental health and therapy. And now reproductive records are kind of being added to that as well. So like, let's say I wanted to release my medical records to my husband. I would sign one form usually to say, yeah, I give all my husband my medical records. Well, if I also want to release my mental health records or my addiction records or anything like that, I have to sign a second form. That's like an extra layer of protection. So the fact that these people lost alcohol and drug addiction treatment records and, therapy records, which people are going to be discussing all kinds of things in therapy, right? Secrets, things they're ashamed of, concerns that they have, and a lot of times when those things come out, like information about interpersonal relationships, maybe they stole from an employer and they're feeling guilty about it. And so this type of stuff, if it gets published, would definitely ruin relationships. I don't know if it's going to ruin lives, but it's going to ruin relationships. And the fact that they're going to know. So unlike the usual data breach, like, oh, I was in a data breach and someone tried to buy a TV at Best Buy in Japan in my name, using a Best Buy credit card. It could be anybody, that it could be any data breach, but they're going to know I got treatment at this facility in Florida, which was owned by this company, right? This is how this information got out. So they're definitely going to be facing extreme liability. And then also in the United States, we have what's called the Office of Civil Rights, and their job is to enforce HIPAA and investigate failures. They don't hesitate to levy fines. They'll fine anyone for anything. They tried to fine MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is one of the big cancer research centers in Houston, Texas, one of the biggest and most sophisticated in the country. Tried to fine them like $4.5 million because a nurse had her laptop stolen out of the front seat of her car. It got negotiated down, but after years of litigation and investigations and hoopla. So that's going to be a lot. And especially with like psychiatry, you're going to have people, admitting very personal details that are just going to be horrendous. You can't even force a doctor to testify against their patient, so the fact that they're just going to have all of this information is this is atrocious. And this could be very much used if someone is, accessing this information for nefarious purposes. It'd be very easy to use this information to blackmail somebody because they're going to know they only gave it to certain people. And those secrets tend to be, verifiable. So I actually hadn't seen that, but that makes me really sad. I mean, I'm now really glad I never got mental health care in Florida or Texas or Connecticut. I'm going to be honest, because I wouldn't want everything I have to say.
This could potentially happen anywhere, right? This time it was this clinic, but still. I wanted to ask you a question because you got me curious. Is there any, let's say, something like guidelines regarding the amount of money could be a company could be fined for? Like I know, for example, the GDPR in Europe, there's something like as as much as the 4% of the company revenue could be fined for something like this. Is there something like
Oh,
that in the US?
not to my knowledge. OCR, maybe they have their own internal like estimations, but most
Okay.
of the fines that I see range in the low seven figures. Um,
Okay.
so like there was a hospital in Massachusetts like a year ago that had an insider threat. And they got hit for like $4.75 million. So the fines are definitely smaller than they are in Europe.
Okay.
But we also monitor them for 3 years, which I don't know what's worse. I'd rather almost part with my money than have someone breathing down my neck for 3 years. However, it's also we have the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission. So when businesses violate their privacy practices, the FTC will level significant fines. They hit Facebook with like a $5 billion fine, and now I think someone is trying to levy like a $19 million fine against TikTok. So those fines go up exceedingly. But as
Yeah,
far
yeah.
as some of the other HIPAA, they usually in the low seven figures, usually between 4 and 9 million bucks.
Okay.
But it's usually
Well,
never
that's
less than
interesting.
900 grand.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I will say bad because, once again, this kind of sector handles very sensitive data. So we would like to have a special care about the kind of data. But at the same time, I mean, that's probably different in the US, but here in Europe, that kind of sector doesn't have the money and the capabilities to obtain the same level of security as many big corporates, right? So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have a strong opinion on that.
Yeah,
But it's interesting.
some healthcare systems do have significant funding. Most hospitals actually and medical, I would say, conglomerates are privately held. So they're
Right.
not subject to as many of as many financial restrictions as like the publicly owned ones and the rural healthcare centers and the ones that rely primarily on federal funding. But all the standards are the same regardless. So now there is the way HIPAA security standards work and privacy standards. They're supposed to be relative to the size of the business. But at the end of the day, when it comes to if you're handling, you know, patient files on mental health, right, or addiction, or you know, sexually transmitted diseases, any of those protected areas, the requirements are still the same, right? You still have to do a certain number of things in relative strength to the type of network you have, but you still have to do them, and that's still significant cost. However, I will say the United States Department of Health and Human Services is forcing everyone to go towards electronic health records. So it's weird because like the penalties are about the same, but everyone has to go on electronic health records and everyone has to do these standards, even those that don't have any money to even put their records online. And so it's a mess. Like I'm going to say it's not the most well thought out process. Normally you would want things in a more linear approach. Like, let's make sure everybody is on track before, and doing what they need to do before you push everything onto electronic health records, which is what makes this so accessible. But, nothing is perfect, I guess. They're just
No,
trying their best.
absolutely. Well, it's something that I feel like every country is really being challenged with. The digitalization with on the other side, the security of it, right? It's not, yeah, it's just a big mess, and it's not a simple thing to do, especially with this kind of sensible sectors and sensible information. Um, so there's some specific statement here that make me laugh a little bit. That from a spokesperson from the company that says something like, "We did some investigation and found out that no AI chatbots, access this kind of data and were trained from it." So it's very, very specific. I'm not even sure how they did this kind of investigation, if they did it, but I'm just mentioning it because it's a good it's a good point to follow with the next news, right? When we talk about AI and the kind of data they are trained with, and what I'm going to talk about is the new AI model from X, or
Hmm.
Twitter. If you don't know, I'm actually still sticking to the previous name there, uh, and this model is called Grok AI.
Hmm.
Apparently, it's still only available to the premium users, so just if you're paying your subscription to Twitter. And there's been some discussion around it, because apparently they wanted to do this a little differently than the competitors of the other LLM chatbots out there. And the way in which it's different is the fact that it does have less boundaries, less um, limitations in how it, both in how it collects data and now it actually responds to prompt to the users. There's been some discussion about biases, because there are not the same limitations that have been implemented in, for example, ChatGPT over the time. There have been some discussion about disinformation regarding, especially the elections in the U.S. And the other big discussion is around the fact that by default, when it was implemented, this technology had access to the entirety of the information on Twitter or X. So basically, any user comments or posts, any interaction between the users, unless you specifically went to your configuration and disabled this kind of new feature, you had all of your data, new and past informations, being collected and used to train this kind of technology. Now, um, well, the ways we can talk about this and the things we can talk about this are probably infinite. But I would like to hear from you, first of all, about the legitimacy of using such a technology and collecting data from the users. Because once again, something like this could not. I mean, it's possible in Europe, but at the same time, you will get a pretty big fine, because you can't force users to give up their data without asking them first, right? And if like something is going to happen, because of course there are European users on Twitter as well. But what's your opinion on this?
Well, so in the United States, social media platforms such as X or Twitter are very heavily protected. They have a certain type of immunity under Communications Decency Acts. So what essentially it means is anything that anyone posts on there, they're not responsible, because they just deliver. They don't create content. They're just allowing it to be hosted, right, on their platform. And so under the privacy policies that accompany these, it's basically saying, look, anything you post on here is, your decision. We're not forcing you to use our website. It's your choice how much information you allow or not allow. We reserve the right to use your information as X, Y, and Z, unless you specifically opt out, which is a rule that California instituted, where if someone says, we don't want you using our information for this, they have to respond and abide by that. And about 20 other states have, or 19 other states have picked up on that and followed suit. So now it's just kind of, but because California is so big and so many people, in the United States, basically everyone sort of adheres to the California rules just by default, because it's impossible to exclude the state of California. If you're a United States operator from anything, you'll just automatically cut off economically like a huge portion of your potential market, right? But what they'll do is they'll also say we reserve the right to update this privacy policy at any time. And as long as we notify you that it's updated and you continue to be a member or a user, continue to post information about it, you are implicitly consenting to that. So they are, as far as, I'm just surprised that like anyone is surprised by this. Like, this is happening. Everything we do is tracked. Now you see all these cookies banners, and like that's why I can talk to my phone and be like looking up where to buy a new jacket. And on my PC, which isn't even hooked up to the same Wi-Fi network, right? They're on two different, one's on strictly data and one's on Wi-Fi, right? I'll get ads for jackets, when I pull up a news site, right? It's everything's being tracked because it's based upon IP addresses. They know which IP addresses I use at my work, at my home, based on my phone. It's all connected. And so the fact that anyone would think this is abnormal or confusing or surprising, that surprises me. Like, if you think that your device is not listening to you, sure, then you know what? I have a unicorn in my backyard. I'd love to sell you, and I'll ship it to you as soon as I have your money. Like, it's garbage. And look, I participate on Twitter. I don't really post much. I participate on Facebook. I mainly post about work, or I'll show a picture of my kid winning a soccer game, or something. But if you really are sit there and you put all this information in and you think it's not being sold, shared, tracked, and fed into another large language model or machine intelligence, you are grossly incorrect. It is all happening. There's nothing to stop it. In the United States, we have like 3 federal laws on artificial intelligence, 3. And they basically go something like this. The United States government says, we're going to figure out how to make sure we protect our citizens from artificial intelligence. But that's the law. It just says we're going to do it. It doesn't say that we have to do it. It doesn't say how we're going to do it. It just says we're going to do it. And then there's another law that basically says you cannot create 2 artificial intelligence models that compete against each other and regenerate. Okay, let me know when you figure out who's doing that and how you're going to enforce it. And then there's another law that says, we said we were going to figure it out and how to protect the United States citizens from artificial intelligence. We didn't do that. So now we're going to hire people to figure it out. And that's essentially what the United States laws are. Every state has, or not every state, like 33 out of the 50 states have some sort of law that says, we're going to figure it out. And no one's figuring it out. Utah and Colorado and Illinois are the only 3 states in the United States that have any laws on artificial intelligence. And I think Utah's is being challenged and can't be enforced right now because it got challenged in the court successfully. But most of them can revolve around consent. Like, you have to consent before someone can use any data that you input into a large AI model. The problem with that is that's only going to apply to people that aren't already, it's only going to really help like minors and kids that aren't really fully invested in the AI system yet or already haven't created. I've had a Facebook account for 20 years. No, it's over. It's done. Like, the horse has left the stables, it's over. I mean, anyone can do anything with my data, and I find that terrifying, but, I ignore it because I got to sleep. So I think it'll help younger generations that haven't put everything out there on the internet. But you and me, buddy, we're done. We're cooked. Like, it's over. There's nothing anyone can do to help us. We just have to. And like, at the end of the day, there also has to be some sort of personal responsibility on the user, right? Like, if I don't, like, remember that thing that was going on Facebook that was like, age yourself in 10 years, send us a face photo and we'll age you. I'm like, that was them collecting biometrics on your face, man. Like, if you can't figure that out, I can't help you. Right. And then also, like, hey, buddy, don't put your date of birth on Facebook. My mom posts on my Facebook every year with my birthday. And I'm like, Mama, I intentionally don't have my birthday on Facebook. Can you not wish me a happy birthday? Because then 90,000 other people do it. And now everyone knows I turned 40 on August 23rd because my mom decided to put my stuff on Facebook, right? Or those quizzes that are like, what was the name of your first pet? And all those security questions, like, people have to wake up and like, it's not going to be anyone's job specifically to teach them until we start putting this in schools. But based on the American education system, it's going to take a while, so just be cautious. Like, and honestly, I think the more you remove social media from your life, the happier you're going to be just as a person. Like,
probably you're right in that. I agree with you with the fact that this should not be a surprise. We had a similar conversation on another episode with another guest with some similar-ish news, and I just said the same, right? This is nothing new. We already
I'm surprised he's like putting out a name on it. Like, why are you even naming it? This is just standard operating procedure. You don't need to name it Grok AI. It's just Twitter. Like, it's just part of what's going on.
At the same time, I feel like this is not specified in the news, or at least I think, but I think the people that are really affected more by all of this AI collecting data is, let's say, content creators of any type, right? Let's say someone who really, I don't know, writes poem on the internet, or does some music or anything. I feel like the biggest problem is when an AI is going to collect your data, your content, and right away be able to reproduce the same kind of content that you're maybe trying to make your job out of it, right? So I feel like that's probably something slightly new compared to just my personal information. I know they are gone
Mhm.
from a long
It's
time,
gone. Yeah,
and
it's gone.
I agree with the fact that the only way is to just not put that kind of data online anywhere, because either any legitimate company or some cyber criminal is going to have that at some point. But I'm just a little surprised by the claim for a more open AI, right? Just because, and that's the reason why this is the title of the news. They made the some part of the source code open source, so you
Mhm.
can go in there and review the source code. I'm not sure what's the point in that, honestly. But at the same time, if you're then using that software to do some kind of sketchy or spoofy things, yeah, still it's not really open. It's just maybe even worse than the others. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. But in any way, I'm just so grateful to have had this conversation with you, Sarah. Once again, you just confirmed this idea that I have, that the more diverse is the person that I'm speaking with, and the same news, like I can speak about this with some other friend, some technical people maybe, and the conversation will have been completely different, right? Just because we have
People
a
get
different
emotional
approach.
about it. They get
Also,
emotional about it.
also,
They have these like
absolutely.
preconceived notions and they get emotional about it. This is just reality. I didn't make it. You know?
Absolutely, but you also,
Yeah.
included a lot of information about, U.S. laws that I will never had the opportunity to know before. So I'm so grateful for that, and I very, I thank you so much for it. That
You're
said,
very welcome.
that's gonna be it for this episode, unfortunately. But we reached our time. Thank you for everyone of the people watching this, and I saw also some comments there. Thank you so much. I'm gonna read through them after it, and consider, if you like this, maybe subscribing so that you will be notified when a new episode will be out. There's a new one coming next week, and let me know in the comments if you like this, because maybe I could reach out to Sarah once again for a new episode at some point. That's it. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
have a nice day, have a good night, or depending on where you are. Bye, everyone.
So much. Bye.